Hi guys, welcome to another episode on the podcast. Got myself Brian, my co-host Squints, and our new friend Ten Skilla. We we've known each other like 10 years on and off through like random car events, but never like formally
It's
met.
been a while, man. It's a long
Uh,
time. Does that mean we're getting old?
Yeah, I lost my hair. I had to get it put back on. So yeah, I'd say we're getting old.
Damn.
Time is a perception.
That's all we have.
Yeah,
I've actually gotten better looking in the last couple of years, shaved off all that weight.
good for
So
you.
I've turned
You
back the
look good,
clock.
bro. Yeah, it's
Turned
doing
back the
it's
clock a
doing
little
well
bit.
for you.
Dr. Danny, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
helps a little bit.
What was it? Only 20% though? You got 20% off.
Only 20%.
What's up with that, Danny?
Yeah, Danny. Where's our discount for always promoting you? Um, I guess we'll start with, the obvious one. How was it getting into MySpace, and how'd you even lead up to getting into MySpace? Like, what was that TED life before that?
Yeah, so it was kind of like, like a lot of people don't really understand what I've done or like how I got to where I am because they think I'm like 32. You know,
You
I
look
thought
young.
I thought you were
Thanks.
25.
I appreciate it. There was Danny. It was all the 80% of the bill that I've had to pay the whole time. The 20% discount. If I had a bigger discount, I'd probably look older. Maybe that's probably what it was. But I don't know. But yeah, so I've been around for a long time. I'm 47, and I started my career in the mid 90s in the Silicon Valley. So I was part of the whole dot-com boom 1.0, and it kind of came out as we were living. I was in college, and I was living in the Bay Area, and all of a sudden there's all these tech companies and dot coms booming out of we had tech companies before, but these are like these dot coms. It was like this newest craziest thing, and so I started to work in that capacity, like worked in sales and and kind of grew really fast because that space was evolving quickly, and I was in business development and I was running departments and stuff like that. And so at the end of the 90s I got recruited. I was working for a company called NextTag at the time, and it was a comparison shopping engine, kind of like Price Grabber. It was like one of the biggest ones. We sold half the company for $1 billion many years ago, and then I got recruited by a company called Lower My Bills, and it's still around
That's,
today.
I was gonna say I've seen
Yeah.
commercials for
So I
it.
was one of the early guys there, one of the first few guys there, and my job was to build a business similar to Lending Tree, and I did that for NextTag. So built that business for Lower My Bills, did pretty well, got to like $1 million a day in revenue, and then we sold it to Experian within a couple of years.
Oh shit.
And so that did well, and then at that point I decided, had this like this moment of realization. It's like I've been selling stuff that makes no change in the world. You have those realizations like, what the fuck am I doing? And so I was in sales and business development, selling mortgage business or leads to banks. And it was huge business. I mean, like I said, it was like $1 million a day, right? And I realized, was that really adding any value to anyone's life? And so I realized that I don't want to work in sales or business development again. I just don't want to do it. So at that point, I kind of quit, and I resigned after the day after the acquisition, and basically I took it to sabbatical, some time off, and then at the time we were working at Lower My Bills, we had a pretty big office in Santa Monica, so we subleased part of it out to these guys, really young, like smart guys, and we were sharing pizzas with them every day. And these guys, they had a email ad network, which was really kind of like they were selling at the time. It was a spam house, right? They're sending emails like it's Wild West. There was no canned spam laws or anything like that. It was really beautiful. So these guys were selling, and they're creating products to send. They have like huge lists, right? And they're just blasting. And the inboxing was like 100%. At the time, there was no like blocking. You were just in, and people were just looking at emails and buying shit. So these guys had uh, an ad network. It was called Response Base, and they lived in our office. Also, we'd share pizzas with them and stuff. And I got to be close to them and become friends with them. And one of the guys' name was Tom, right? And so you kind of know where this is going. So Tom's responsibility was basically he was responsible for building products for them to market on this ad network, on these emails, right? So he's coming out with all kinds of stuff. They had like skincare, they had diet
And he's
products.
finding all of these.
Yeah, he's creating them and he's sourcing them from China, like doing all this stuff, right? And then also happened to be, he happened to be on the dating site Match.com too at the time, and the dating sites were like really taboo at the time. It's like you're on a dating site, you're a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
And then we were experiencing the first social network at the same time in parallel was a company called Friendster. I don't know if you guys
I do
remember.
remember
I
Friendster.
remember the name, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a guy named John Abrams. I knew him in the Bay Area, and he started Friendster. And Friendster was very limiting. It really prevented people like Tila Tequila, for example. Actually, if you remember her,
She's the first
she
big.
was one of the first big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she couldn't have more than 500 friends
Mm,
on
it
Friendster.
was
Oh, they
capped.
capped it.
They capped it, and she just kept asking. It was like, "Hey, why can't I have more friends?" This is kind of And they're like, "No, that's it. It's just ridiculous. Like you couldn't customize anything." So then we approached all these guys. We approached her. We approached them. So Tom came up with this concept of MySpace, and then basically launched MySpace. I was on from the early days in the beginning, and jumped on and said, "Hey, I said, yo, I can't sell. I don't want to sell. I'm just like my soul has been, like."
Yeah.
Extracted like an isolate the psilocybin, it's like it's gone,
I
so
get it. Yeah.
and so then we I said, yeah, we're just gonna throw parties. So cool, so let's throw MySpace parties to launch it, so anyway, so I jumped on MySpace in the beginning, and then we approached all these people from different platforms like Tila Tequila and everyone else in Friendster to bring them on basically on MySpace, and it worked out pretty well. And then the rest is history, basically.
Yeah.
So it went really well. We were growing really fast, faster than anything the internet's seen. We did more traffic than Google for the first 2 years, and then we sold it within the first 2 years to News Corp, which was kind of a
Is that how
bittersweet
fast it was?
situation. Yeah, it was
Wow.
really fast.
Did you stay on after the sale?
Yeah, so we all had to stay on until about 2008.
Okay.
That's when all the earnouts expired. And then we just at that point we sold to Rupert Murdoch, News Corp. So we were promised a bunch of stuff in the beginning. We wanted more money to be able to hire more to sustain the growth. We were growing like wildfire, and essentially they said, yeah, we're gonna capitalize it. We need more engineers. There's a lot of spam on MySpace. There's a lot of other stuff going on that was just becoming slow and crashing and things like that. So as soon as they acquired us, Murdoch put a hiring freeze in place, which is fucking opposite of what we agreed to, So basically, limited our resources, couldn't hire, and then it just went downhill from there. 2008 when we were leaving, it was just we were really sad. We were depressed from we built the thing that something that could have been the biggest thing in the world, for forever, and it was just you cut its feet off, from under it, and we were just like, dude, whoa, this is really, really devastating. During the process, during that whole era, there were some competitors that saw opportunity in that. So not only did we have a hiring freeze, we had to like populate it with tons of ads. So they wanted to make more revenue. Rupert Murdoch wanted to make more revenue and wanted to cut out the, expenses. So he was like trying to, do a classic PE move, and say, hey, let's take this distressed asset and make it, profitable. But it was only a year and a half old. It wasn't a distressed asset.
No,
it was
just
growing still,
Yeah.
It's
On
kind
a
of like
huge trajectory.
on a huge trajectory, yeah. So couldn't capitalize it to have more resources, and they stuck a lot of ads in there, so people got really upset about it, and then Facebook saw that opportunity and said, hey, you know what, we don't have any ads, which is great, and then let's open up to everyone, not just college people. So took that opportunity and basically started to grow from there, and that's kind of where that growth came from. It was fortunate for them. It kind of sucked for us. 2008 was a kind of a weird year for us when we left, but I ended up leaving with the blessing of management, which was some people that were still there, and to build and solve a new problem. MySpace had a problem. It had 7 billion ads a day, impressions, and they were going under monetized. So effective CPM was a penny because they couldn't figure out how to monetize it well. The sales channels were terrible. It was all sold on a rev share, like an honor system. The partners would report their revenue like 30 days later, and it was just like, dude, people are stealing from us. It was crazy. So I went down the path of building a technology to help MySpace monetize better. So MySpace was my first client. So the next company I started was in 2009. No capital, first client MySpace, and started doing, generating really, really crazy revenue within the first month, and grew that and eventually took it public. So
Um, I loved the customization of MySpace. It's still my favorite platform because
You're
it
good,
really
man.
was our space. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
was the top eight and the music
yeah.
and like how did all that like source code and like all of these pages that come with like all the creative like type of skins and things that was like it was really next level for the time, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Like, a lot of people tell me, hey, I learned how to code because of MySpace. And
Yeah.
I met my wife on MySpace. I'm sorry, or I'm happy for you, whatever. Either way, either way. So yeah, there's a lot of those sites. Actually, a lot of those sites, these glitter page sites
Yeah.
and all that stuff, where they created, code for you. Those sites actually ended up having acquisitions, some of them,
Yeah.
and some of them got acquired and sold and stuff. And there's some competitors. I was on a podcast the other day, and they were talking about another social network that kind of copied MySpace at the time. It was called Bebo. I don't
I remember
know if you
Bebo,
remember
yeah.
Bebo. And then remember there's High Five also.
Uh-huh.
I remember High Five.
Well, Bebo sold for $1 billion.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was crazy, right? It was big in Asia, I guess. It was big there. So
I
it's
found a lot
pretty
of
wild.
like, Wiz Khalifa is an artist that I broke from MySpace, I
Hmm.
believe. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
just like, I think it was the realization for media that there was this outlet now that was like, I mean, for an A&R, what better place than to sit there and like find talent, right?
yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty cool space to like be creatively express yourself.
Hmm.
Um,
A lot of talent came from there. We had comedy too, so a lot of comedians came out of there.
yeah.
Dane Cook was
Uh-huh.
discovered there as well. A lot of artists, a lot of musicians, and all the music stuff kind of came from Tom being, in bands his whole life. So Tom was like a musician, and so he was really, he really loved music, and that was kind of his thing, and so we had a record label too. It was MySpace Music. It was with Interscope, and that
Yeah,
was fun. It
I
was like
remember that. Yeah.
there's a lot of like indie artists, at the time. Not my scene, but it was fun. It was a lot really very different from what we see Facebook and Instagram
Yeah.
as.
How do you feel about the arc of social since you were involved in basically the creation of the platform?
Yeah, so my job was like I was part of the marketing strategy, and so a lot of my stuff was really offline marketing, and then later it became more online stuff of like acquiring exclusive content from artists. Hey, Pharrell, let's perform this entire album on the top of the ArcLight, parking
Yeah.
lot, and shoot it and put it up on the site like 2-3 weeks before your album drops, so everyone can watch and listen to it before. So that attracted a lot of exclusive content. Sorry, a lot of traffic for that exclusive content. And I think that, what we see is what we're seeing now is very different from, that era. We had a lot of connection to offline before during the
Hmm.
MySpace era. We had a lot of events and a lot of stuff, to like kind of tie in all the social stuff to offline. I don't really see that anymore. Everything's really just online now, We're seeing
Yeah.
that it's kind of evolved in a different way, and we're seeing a lot of like bad habits being formed by people, and a lot of crazy stuff like that. So a lot of change, but we see where it originated from. We see some consistencies, like people becoming really big and famous and being discovered and stuff like that. We're seeing that, on the current platforms too. You see like some change in behavior with like TikTok, and the users, and how TikTok's demographics growing and changing so fast too. Now it's becoming a lot older now than it was originally. It was like really young, and now it's like constantly evolving. We're seeing consistency in that with brands being involved with TikTok as well, like older brands, brands that have demographics that are targeting older people.
Yeah.
A lot of involvement from there too. But yeah, MySpace is, I think that it's always trending a lot lately. So I've been in conversation with the guys
The
that
site's
own.
still live, is it?
I don't really pay attention to it. It probably is, but
Yeah.
with
I
the
think it's
guys,
still up.
yeah. So there's a company called Specific Media who bought MySpace from from News Corp.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was a $35 million deal. It was a long time ago. And just like a week before that deal closed, this is how retarded the whole thing was. It was so bad, right? But like a week before the thing closed, the routine maintenance, they spent $50 million on servers. News Corp.
On a $35 million.
And then a week later, they sold it for $35 million. It's ridiculous, right? It was insane.
Sounds like big corp.
Yeah, it sounds like some big corp stuff, right? So, yeah, it was crazy.
Don't really make no sense.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that acquisition happened, and everyone's like, "Oh, Justin Timberlake's involved," and now that was like a $7 million endorsement deal, and he was part of it for a little while,
I remember that
Yeah.
that news. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that kind of, he kind of that involvement went away pretty fast. They tried to rebuild it, with like a new tone and stuff, and it just didn't work. It was like a weird time for it. I think it was too soon.
Yeah.
And then so the guys that bought it, they're called they're called Specific Media. They're in Orange County, and then they sold their company to Time Inc. And then Time, we were working on a deal with Time for a little while. Like, hey, let's try to buy it back. And what kind of deal can we get? So we're getting really close to a deal, and basically ended up in a situation where Time got right in the middle of our deal. Time got acquired by Meredith.
Mm-hmm.
So Meredith acquired Time, and then Meredith gave these guys who sold Specific Media to Time. He gave them an opportunity to say, "Hey, you guys want to buy your company back? We don't want it. We don't want it on our books. So do you want to buy it back?" So they gave them an opportunity to buy it back. I think they bought it back for what they sold it to them for, which was like, I don't know, it was like about $100 million or something like that. It included MySpace and their whole business. And then so they bought it back, somehow. And then within like a year or two, they did an IPO, like a multi-billion-dollar IPO in the same company. It's crazy, right? So they took it public, and this is when like ad tech stocks were soaring. This is like 3 years ago. And they took it public, and then now the company's worth, like, I don't know, the market cap's like 100 million. It was like 3 billion. Now it's like 100 million or something crazy. So during that era, I was like approaching them, and I know these guys for many years because they were clients of ours and we were clients of theirs. They changed the name of the company from Specific to Viant. It's like, hey, do you want to sell this asset? Hey, we're the guys that are qualified to,
take it on,
revive it, and they're like, yeah, we get a lot of unqualified offers, we're not entertaining of them. This is not an unqualified offer, but okay. So yeah, that's kind of what, that's kind of where it ended up. But yeah, we've been trying for a little while, and I think if I get a deal, then it might be interesting, because we don't really want anything except for the domain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we want.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't even want, we don't want tech or anything. Just
it's interesting because I feel like in social space, MySpace was like pretty much everything, and now the apps that we're left with are basically like fractured splinters of what MySpace was. Technically, you know what I mean? Like there's all the Facebook aspects, there's the Twitter aspects, there's the Instagram aspects. All this was in a place that was customizable. It was a much better platform than what we have. What we've been left with, so to speak.
I feel that way too, and I also feel that I feel like these guys don't get it, right? It's like clear everyone's talking about the stuff that we're missing. It's like the algorithm. We don't need an algorithm, and no one wants one, right?
No.
Like let it roll, And
So
obviously,
are you of the opinion it needs to go away?
It needs to go away, absolutely. And I feel like chronological is great. That's just how it should be. Like I feel that, people maybe they might be using some data to recommend content which is appropriate for our user behavior based on our browsing history and stuff like that. Okay, that's okay. But from the standpoint of algorithm to maximize revenue for them, I think is
not fair to them.
It's not fair to the producers of the content, right? At the same time, like I want to see, I'm scrolling through the feed and I'm seeing stuff from like a week ago still,
and from somebody I probably don't even follow, something that's recommended to me because of some other person that I've looked at their content previously.
Yeah, so the algorithm sucks, I think, and having something that doesn't have the algorithm could win potentially. There's that, and then also stuff like, hey, people want music on their page. They want music on their page. They want top 8 stuff.
We want adaptability. We want to have like a space that is ours and that
Mm-hmm.
is, creatively we could really put our content out there, or make things that could stay and people could go find in a place, right?
Yeah, and so when we were going down this path, I like had this conversation with Tom, and we were brainstorming a few years ago, and we're like, hey, what are the things that we really need if we were to build an Instagram killer? And some of the things were like really like basic, like, hey, from a creator standpoint, creators need more flexibility. Hey, why can't we geo target our posts? Like, I want to post something that only shows up in Japan, you know? I want to post something that targets, like this demographic or this age range, or or this kind of thing, or like frequency. Like, hey, can we just show this post only one time in the feed to the users, or we want to show it 3 times, or whatever it is, like we should be able to do
Dialed
targeting,
in.
like basically like ad targeting, but with our posts,
Makes way
so
more sense from a capital standpoint for
for
a
sure.
company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a creator standpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from a
of course.
creator's perspective. Yeah, so that's kind of where it's at. And yeah, we're on that same, it's always trending, and Tom's trending all the time, like
Yeah.
on Twitter for something, it's
Uh-huh.
crazy. And there's all these memes all the time, like, oh, MySpace never did anything to us, it's like, oh, it's
It's a very
interesting.
beloved thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually sad that the next generation missed it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because it was a cool space, bro. It really was, and it was a good time. I feel like people have fond memories of the era itself,
Yeah.
and the integration of like, it's really what brought us all online, because before that, I mean, the internet poker boom was happening around the
Mm-hmm.
same time as well. So you saw that a lot, but that was like our first, like, it was the first integration of like a social aspect where people were meeting up that didn't really, people of a like thing could find a home somewhere.
Sure.
And it was a really cool, straightforward avenue for that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah. I know. I think we all miss it, and I think that if there was another iteration of MySpace with Tom being your first friend, I think that it would have a really good
Oh, it
chance.
kill.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I think that,
Tom, you hear this?
yeah, no, definitely. I'm there. I
Where
mean,
is Tom these days?
Okay, let's talk about Tom. so,
Yeah.
so Tom and I have been like BFFs for like 20 years or more, and we've been through a lot together, and he's I talk to him almost every day still. He's kind of living in different parts of the country. He's in Hawaii, he's in Vegas, he's in LA.
we see the pictures.
Yeah, yeah, but
The pictures are viral.
yeah, the photos are, they're epic, right?
Yeah.
And so he's kind of been in every corner of random parts of the world. He's traveled so much, and his photography was like really, really great.
Uh-huh.
Arguably one of the best landscape photographers in the world. So he got bored of that
I,
a few
I
years
bet.
ago.
Yeah.
So he got bored of that. So we got together, and I tasked him with a new project, and I said, like, hey, let's look at this. So a few years ago, maybe like 7 years ago, I started going down the road of single family residential investments that were primarily focused on cash flow, and they were short term rentals, right? So to make it super simple, it was not just Airbnb, but it was Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And so we took like super high end luxury homes around the price point like 4.5, 3.5 to like $5 to $7 million homes, and we short term rented them. We're getting like a couple $1,000s a night rent, on each one, and they were pretty booked, like 95% booked generally. So we started scaling the portfolio and getting a bunch of that. So Tom, jumped on, and he got a bunch of properties too, and kind of in the same place. So he's been really busy with that. He just keeps buying and buying and buying, and
How is
he's
that business going today?
great question. so
Yeah. Because I feel like there's
so
been news that it's kind of been a downturn in the Airbnb space.
yeah, so kind of like so Airbnb is not the space for it, the place for it anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, it is for certain types of properties. It's still like a 50% revenue driver. For other properties, it's basically some of our stuff is like 10% of the revenue. So, you to be able to scale, you got to be able to scale anything. Like, I don't want to do anything like one of my business partners, Michael Amiri. He's like a big
Designer, yeah.
clothing designer, right? We had a business together for about 4 years as a supplement business, and just like his Amiri stuff is like high perceived value. We're doing like iPhone wooden iPhone boxes and frosted glass bottles for like diet products, like
Yeah.
really over the top stuff. And I sent him to Guangzhou, and he's just like sourcing all this stuff. But Mike is no joke. There's no one that could touch him in perceived value. He'll make
I'm a fan.
it's
Yeah. He
crazy
does.
stuff,
He's
right?
really good at it.
Yeah, so like he was, basically we had that business for many years, and essentially I lost my train of thought.
How is Airbnb? How's that business doing now?
So essentially, we got that business, the supplement business, to scale. We're doing in the first year like 24 million bucks, and it just continued to grow and doubled every year. Right, it was crushing. And then he got back into fashion, did a capsule collection with Maxfield, and started to scale that. So during that time, we're talking about scale, scale, scale. How do we get this thing to grow? We don't want to be in a mom and pop business. We want to be in a place where we can, we can grow something and systemize it,
And
right?
sell it if you want to.
Yeah, and systemize it, right? Which is add, put software around it and make it really manageable and grow, right? So we got that business growing, and then Mike applied the same logic to his clothing business, because he was making clothing by hand. Like these guys each piece was like made by hand, right? How is that scalable? It's not.
It's not.
Right? But he figured it out, and he got that business to scale, and his business worth several billion dollars now. It's only 5-6 years old now, right? He's out of control, putting a store next to every Saint Laurent, just sitting right next to a Saint Laurent, Rodeo, and like every part of the country in the world, right? It's crushing. So he made it scalable. So he figured out how to do it. So that's how we enter these businesses. We want to be able to build scale into them. So same thing with this Airbnb business, right? So how do we get it to scale? Systemize the whole thing, right? Basically, and just add properties or add units, and it grows. The problem that we were facing with this short-term rental business was we had two main channels, right? It was Airbnb and VRBO. That was pretty much it.
So you were saying on the scalability of the Airbnbs.
Yeah, so we had to put software around it. So essentially what we had was we go down the rabbit hole and find all these guys, and these guys are doing similar things that we are, but on a grand scale of like 100 units plus, right? And it's like, how can you imagine that, right? It's pretty insane. 100 units.
That's a lot of
Somebody has
uniform
to
training.
manage it. It's a very
It's not even
intensive
that.
thing.
Yeah, and the teams are only 4 people.
Wow.
For
4
100
people, 100 unit team, 4 people. It's crazy, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, plus cleaning
Cleaning,
staff
yeah,
and stuff.
that's-
But like four management
But
people.
someone has to schedule the cleaning staff
Even
and the
It's all
maintenance.
automatic.
Wow.
Yeah, so we went down that rabbit hole, right, and like figured out all the software that's out there, property management software, and channel managers, right? So our biggest issue was relying on one channel, right? For example, like when you had a Facebook game back in the days when people were making Facebook games, you're kind of like, you couldn't really sell that business because, it's like you rely entirely on Facebook. That thing changes or you're done pretty much overnight. A lot of these short-term rental hosts and owners had the same issue with Airbnb. It's like something changed, then you're wiped out, basically. So we had to diversify the sales channels. So we got channel managers. We integrated 25 to 40 different channels. So we got anywhere from like booking.coms, and we went down the hotel routes, like Price Grabber.
Then you have to integrate
Priceline.
that into your calendar as well.
Well, it's all automated. So yeah, it's all automated, right? So all of this is managed through one platform. So we have a system that basically manages all communication to all the guests and everything through one place, and all the calendars are managed in through one place as well too. So it's all seamless, right? So now we're systemized, right? And now we can scale. So now we're in a place where it's like, yeah, we don't rely on one channel. One channel goes down, whatever. We have all the other channels and just fill it in, So now it's scalable. So now it's in a place where it can grow and just
Go from
add
100 units to 1,000 units.
get to 100. Yeah, that's the next goal, to get to 100. So it's kind of exciting, and yeah, that's how I kind of built some scale around it. So experience from stuff we've done before. It's just like take a business that doesn't seem scalable and try to figure out how to add systems and different strategy to make it super scalable.
Sounds like no matter how far you get away from selling, that it keeps entering back into your life.
See,
Huh?
so I didn't get back to that. So so I stopped selling. During that whole, at the end of 2008, I decided it's time to sell again. And so I started a new company, and that ad tech company was to help publishers monetize better, and I was selling, the whole time. So business development, sales, and and then got into corporate development, which is really just raising capital and public equity and dealing with all the investors and all that stuff afterwards. And so now I took 2 companies public, and I'm just just ready for the next one, because it sucks living the public company life, and
Because
just end up
there's all these extra rules, or what's the I've never experienced that.
yeah. So all the rules, and if you want to be a really like very very like accountable person, like I think that boot camp is taking a company public and going through all that stuff, and eventually you just become ultra accountable. It just, your nature changes, and which is really great, right? It's really good for like all businesses, all your business partners, everything moving forward after that. That's not the issue. Like SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, and all that stuff is fine. I mean, it's just kind of like how I live now, But it's mostly the stuff that happens with the stock, which is vicious, So, I drive around, like whatever, I met you through the car scene,
Yep.
So there's been some, press about me in publications about, I have like a $2 million Bugatti, whatever, right? And so I'm driving a $2 million Bugatti, and then publication writes, an article about that, and then they start, and then they short you. So it's like systematic. They'll write an article, they'll pay these journalists to write an article, and then the next day you get shorted, and then so it's like it's not fun, and so you're constantly in the media, and you're getting smashed down because something like that, you're overpaid.
How does that
So
affect the mental, knowing that you've worked very hard to be in the position
it's
you're
hard.
in?
I mean, I got out in August, and so I've been it's been great, meaning like life after public company is just
You
refreshing.
feel relieved?
Yeah, but I didn't know the rates are gonna go up the same time, and all this other stuff that happened. Like at the same time I got out, like a lot of other things happened. My dog died. I had a home invasion, which you saw the videos, which was crazy. I was almost killed, and
Oh
then
my gosh.
my cat died, and then I had a relationship that ended. It was like 4.5 years. So all this crazy stuff happened right after life after public. The whole thing.
It's a lot of shit at once.
Yeah. And then like this year, it's just wild. The rates, my mood is affected by the rates, because we're constantly buying stuff, and real estate.
Your whole business is upside down because of that, huh?
Cash flows just
It's different, right?
it's very different. So we're looking at we're buying stuff at like 3.5-4%, interest only debt service type of loans for investment properties. Now I have properties sitting 8.5%, and some months, you're just like, and the demand is down, by the way. Like that, as I was getting into it, Airbnb, that whole short-term market changed
Yeah.
quite a bit, and there's a couple things that caused that. One was saturation.
Yeah.
There's a saturation issue, and then saturation is being dealt with regulation. So regulation is dealing with the saturation in our area. So regulation coming into LA, which is great because all of our properties in LA, which really really helped us actually reduce saturation. So we're fully compliant. And then outside of that, the rates came down because we are like like the super luxury side. So people aren't paying, they're not paying $2,000 anymore. They're paying like $1,250. So the rates came down quite a bit, and then the demand came down at the same time too.
Huge swings.
So huge swings. So yeah, same properties were doing like 50 grand a month. Clockwork 7 years are now doing like 25 to 30.
Oh shit, almost
Yeah.
half.
Yeah, basically some of them are marginally profitable.
I
So
got a different question for you. All
Yeah.
these businesses you've built over the years, mentally, how do you go through all of that? The sales, the acquisition, having a boss, not having a boss. Like, how do you manage that? Were you able to just exit one and jump into the next, or were you forced to like just take a mental break and really find who you were again to get recentered to then continue?
yeah, so I feel that that's what I'm doing right now, right? So I've always had a bunch of businesses, and I think that my primary business was the last company that I took public. And I don't have a primary business right now. I mean, I have another tech venture that we launched around the same time. That's in stealth right now, and it's growing. But I own the whole thing entirely. One thing that I learned though is once you get enough experience, and I think that it's really kind of exciting to do something on your own. I've always had these partnerships with people, and I always felt like I was like maybe doing a little bit more than
Everybody else.
everyone else, and I think that from the equity standpoint didn't make sense. So now I'm trying to be really diplomatic here.
That's fine, but it's a space that like any of us in any walk of life in any
Sure.
business can feel like at times that one partner usually runs the show, and sometimes that's what they signed on for.
Mm-hmm.
But as things get successful, you end up in a headspace that you're like,
There's a little bit of resentment and
yeah, or maybe like, fuck, this is a lot, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily feel like I'm getting my share. So go ahead. I understand where you're at
Yeah,
with
you
that.
know, I think it comes down to like the situations where so we're paid firefighters, right? So our jobs are to fight fires.
That's
We're
great.
not.
Yeah.
That's all we
That's
do.
what you
Like
do. Yeah.
anyone that's
As a business
successful,
owner, yeah,
any business owner that's solving any problems,
entrepreneur, yeah.
we're mostly dealing with fires. Like there's like more days of fires than days of like like that are good. And I think that, and it's because of risk taking. I'm a risk taking CEO, and I take a lot of risk and stuff. And so a lot of solutions for these fires, a lot of time for the last venture, they only came from me. Like my partners were there, but it just ended up in places where I want to be in a place where, hey, if I'm the only one fighting the fires, then I'm the only one, then I
getting
got
the
to call
role.
all the shots, and I did. But in this new venture that I have, it's just me entirely. It's a completely different situation because I don't even, the pandemic kind of treated us a certain way as business owners. We started to understand our employees a little bit better, and we realized that I had this experience that employees, they didn't want to come back in the office. We had like 150 people in an office, and all of a sudden it's like none of them want to come back. And because of Google and Sony and Facebook and everyone saying that you guys can work permanently from your homes, they're saying, basically, hey, these guys, say that, we don't have to come back to an office. So we ended up in a situation where we did not, we couldn't have people in an office anymore. So no more office. So we learned something there. Say, hey, okay, go, learn how to manage employees remotely, which was a huge thing, like a huge shift in culture. And then we realized quickly that, hey, you know what? They don't need to be in LA,
They could be anywhere.
and they don't need to be in California. Fuck, they don't need to be in the country. They don't need to be in the country. I bought a company in 2018, a Ukrainian ad tech company, and it came with a bunch of 50 developers, right?
It's a lot of
All in
developers.
Ukraine, right? And it's the best thing I ever did because I learned how to work with these people, and they're so much more efficient and they're better, right? They're like so much didn't have to. They're not shopping jobs. They're not, they don't even have benefits. We're just paying them, because we can't really technically give them benefits over there. It just doesn't work. So anyway, so we have 50 full-time developers. So the new venture is everyone is there, and by the way, these Ukrainians are incredible workers.
Yeah, they're efficient.
I'm on these Zoom calls with them every morning, and there's bomb sirens going on,
Wow.
and they're just laughing. They're just like, these people have grit, and it's crazy. So
It's a different outlook
totally
on
different
life in
outlook.
general,
So
and pride in work, because I
yeah,
feel like that's lacking in the
yeah,
American marketplace now. Is that like I don't think that
Finding labor in at least California.
finding not just finding labor, you can find labor and people to fill spaces. Finding somebody that takes pride in their position or their work is that's harder to do, right? It's hard to find somebody
yeah,
that takes pride in their own work, let alone somebody else's company. I feel like in America these days, it's a lost thing.
Oh yeah.
I never wanted to be attached to anything personally that I wasn't like didn't feel like was mine in some sense, or wasn't willing to like
sure,
go above and beyond for.
yeah, it's
These guys probably are really happy to be in the place they're in and go
yeah,
above and beyond, which you're probably not used to at all from managing a lot of
not
people.
used to that here.
Yeah.
So it's really refreshing.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I spent some time there, and I was going there every year for a while, and it's really great. And I haven't been there since the war started. I was there 2 weeks before the war started,
Hmm.
and that was like February of last year, and I haven't been there since. And it's, we talked to, when I go to Europe, I'm going to end up going there because I feel like it'd be really interesting to see, and I love the culture. They have great people there. But yeah, so I empowered my team to name the company a Ukrainian word as well.
That's
So
awesome.
it's named after an ancient Ukrainian musical instrument, like a string instrument, which is really great for it's symbolic to their culture.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, like we have this thing. It's completely different from what I'm used to. So I'm saying, hey, let's like have like a completely different outcome. Let's do something totally different. Let's see how it goes. No partners, and my team's over there. So let's go.
Completely opposite of what
It's
you're
already,
used to.
it's profitable. It's running. It's great.
You sound
So
like you're in a positive headspace about it. So I'm assuming
yeah.
this different route is you're happy with it at the moment.
I am, and I think it's working out really well.
Yeah.
And we just got to get the scale, which I'm confident we will. It's we're trying to do something really exciting too. We're leveraging some AI in all the decisioning and all the logic that the technology has and makes will be done in AI. So
How do
it's
you
gonna be really efficient.
feel about AI?
So I just gave I just delivered a keynote at 100 Million Mastermind about marketing AI.
You were at Dan's event.
Dan's event, yeah. I've been a partner of that event for 4 years, so I've been speaking like three times a year, doing keynotes there, and but they're about an hour each. It's pretty good, and so I'm really trying to be pragmatic about because the audience is full of really interesting guys. 100 Million Mastermind is comprised of people that have 7 and 8 figure businesses basically, and these guys they all pay 100K a year each
3 events.
for 3 events. So we got 10 million in tickets, 10 million in memberships sold every year, and these guys were trying to get to 8 figures and 9 figures, and so a lot of them have roadblocks. First of all, they can't identify them. It's all the scalability limitations, and so we have the experience. So there's 24 of us that are coaching them, and basically, we kind of take them through, like understand their businesses and show them how to kind of break through and introduce them to people that have done things that they need to do. So it's really fun. But yeah, as far as AI and marketing, there's no reason for us to continue to do certain things that we're doing. Like I'll give you an example, like sales copy and all that stuff, like for your email drips and even your IVRs and all your call scripts for your call centers and your landing page copy and all this other stuff. There's no reason why we're writing it still or paying a copywriter to do it, So, we use Jarvis for that. Jarvis does really great sales copy. It's great for sales. I wouldn't use ChatGPT for stuff like that. There's so many other things like images and videos and stuff. You can create that right now using Dolly and several other DeepMind, several other tools. So pretty well versed in all the marketing AI tools currently, and I think it's really enabling right now. It enables us to do a lot with less, so you can just get rid of overhead pretty quickly.
I feel like on the new venture, you're liking the fact you can limit overhead and limit staff and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's so good.
Limit fires.
Well, I think limit.
Yeah.
A lot of fires. I mean, we have people related fires, right? Yeah. So some people cause fires, so that's just the nature of it, And so by being over there, yeah, it's limiting some fires, for sure. And I think that some fires are like, yeah, hey, our lead engineer's leaving for Google or something like that, And so I'm not seeing any of that stuff happen anytime soon. So things like that are good, So
let me ask you a question. The one word that I hear over and over and over as we're talking throughout your whole career path is scale.
Yeah.
What are some words of advice for any type of entrepreneur, business owner that's looking to scale business?
Sure. I feel that, our time is our only real asset, right? Mm-hmm. So our time is really valuable, and it's so valuable that there's nothing else that competes with it, right? So people have to crawl before they walk. We understand that, right? So you got to be involved in certain businesses that will help you get to the next stage. You got to eat, right? You got to build some capital and then get to the next stage. But whatever that next stage is, you got to realize that, hey, is this something that is going to make, how much like time freedom is this going to create? Like financial freedom creates freedom of time, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how much freedom is this going to create me, over time? And you got to be able to understand if a business has the potential to get to scale, right? And scale is, do you want to build a company that does, like what's your ultimate goal? Is it going to do $1 million? It's not enough money, Is it going to be, 10 million, Can it get to 100 million? Can you get to 9 digits? Can you get there? Is this a business that can get to 9 digits? For me, I don't get involved in businesses unless I know that I can get to a place like close to 9 digits, you know, and I think that that's like a relatively good baseline marker. How do I get it to 9 digits is the next question. Can it get there? How do I get it there? Like, how can I get it there? And it's not me that's going to figure that out. It's people around me that have done things, or people that are not around me right now that have done things that are kind of in that realm. Can I get to them? And how can I get to them? What kind of value can I bring to them to be able to get them to show me how to do it? You know, everything I learn from someone else. You know, like I'm reading, obviously reading books and stuff, but somebody wrote those books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't write the books, so you know, from that standpoint, it really is about getting access to people who have done things, and I have access to a lot of people, and the way I do that is I'm around people that are valuable to other people, and so I'm kind of a connector, just like you know, and so I think that to be able to attract these types of people, you really just need to be valuable in a certain way.
Value time.
Being this successful in business, not everyone was a home run, and most people think everything you touch turns to gold. How many deals have you failed on to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I was waiting on this one, and I'm glad that I was hoping you didn't forget about this question because we talked about it before, but I'm so glad that you brought it up because this is like a time right now where this is so important to understand. This era is pretty fucked up. You know, like I'm seeing so much pain that people are going through right now. Every conversation I'm having, there's these guys like there's a celebrity hairstyle guy, the barber, this guy Chris. He was cutting a lot of people's hair, and he quit because of the stories that people were telling him. Like every person wouldn't stop talking about how tough the time is right now. I mean, this is how bad it is. It's really bad. Not a lot of people are seeing it, but we're seeing the impact of it. You know, the deflationary actions that that are happening right now. All this deflationary stuff is causing a real. People don't really understand what it does, but raising interest rates, what it does is it actually causes people to spend less money because the access to capital is gone. People are spending less money, meaning the demand for everything is diminishing, meaning everyone has to reduce prices on everything, right? And so like everything, all the prices and everything are coming down. So deflation, access to capital, spending, all that stuff is changing. We're feeling it because we have assets that we can't move as a result of it, so it's really crazy. So how this relates to what you asked is we're not seeing home runs right now. We're pushing hard, and we've seen some home runs before, but for every home run we've had like 10 to 15 failures, man. It's pretty crazy. It's just a numbers game.
But how do you, because I get asked this question a lot.
That's financial failure and time failure, right? Which is
it's more than that. It's your strength and character change, right? So you start really, you need reinforcement. This is why I'm around guys like you guys, right? I want to talk. I have these issues. I have every day. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, fuck. I see these emails, or I see fires and I see issues, and I'm like, I'm getting kicked in the nuts every day. Like this is the era for that right now, right? And then I'm around guys like you, and you guys you're talking about your wins. You're talking about what's happening, and then it brings life back into this. Like, oh yeah, I keep going. Or you tell me about your losses, and it puts mine into perspective, right? Like, oh, I have some friends that lost some some really big big deals, and stuff happened, and mine's not as big, and or that was mine is bigger than theirs, like whatever it is, it just kind of puts it into perspective. But yeah, we have these ventures, and we have these endeavors, and we already know that we're not doing these things and experiencing them for wins. We're learning. We don't consider these things that don't go big, we don't consider them losses, we consider them experience, right? So I learned everything I've learned along the way is just another chapter, and it kind of at the end of it, there's no end of it, but today I have so much experience of things that I will never do again, right? Yeah. It's mostly about remembering things that didn't work for you. It's about that. because you learn constantly about what is working. That's different, and so it's just about understanding yourself a little bit better, and what kind of risks you're willing to take.
Well, it's interesting how you put it as well. You don't call them failures. It's you're learning from that to get to the next.
Yeah.
And it might be 5 steps till the next win, but you learned 5 things along the way.
I did, but there are a few things that fundamentally that I limit myself from, right? So when I get involved in something, I I look at the downside. So I manage downside really well, and I make a decision really fast, right? So it's always about managing downside for me. If I can get out super on, like I'm not going to drop my life savings on a project, and that's just way too much risk, or I'm not going to put all my assets in one place, it's too risky. So if I could afford the loss, then I'll take the risk, or I'll take the risk with someone else, from that standpoint. So some losses can be devastating, but you could manage that risk in the beginning. You could take risks, but do them smart and don't get involved in stuff that is undermining your foundation. So I think that's critical, because the type of risks that I take are very different than the type of risks other people are taking. Other people are taking risks with their life savings and stuff like that, right? And then how do you move on from that? It's very different from the kind of the risks or losses I have. I'm not taking those kind of risks.
Did you take those risks early on?
I got really lucky, and I generally get involved in stuff for my experience, and as my,
good place.
what I could bring, to the table. And it's just because the people I've always been around have pumped me with all this knowledge and wisdom. And I think that
you add something more than money to
more than money. And I think it's a lot more valuable than money, mostly too. So a lot of people approach me as a potential investor for startups and stuff like that. And I tell them right off the bat, say, hey, look, I don't invest in illiquid investments. Okay, that's my number one rule.
There you go.
I don't invest in illiquid stuff, right?
What does that mean to the average person?
For an average person, something that I could pull out my money in the next week or so, something like that.
Hard assets.
Huh?
Hard assets.
Hard assets, or stuff that, exactly, like hard assets, like stuff like, if it's equities, it's publicly trading, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not really getting involved in private equities unless they're stuff that there's a secondary market for that I could dump them, stuff like that. And I look at volume when I'm buying stuff too. If there's enough volume to sell it, that kind of thing, like certain cryptocurrencies, like alternative currencies, and I kind of stay away from stuff like that. But if there's a lot of volume, then it's less risky, I kind of, in markets like these, there's opportunity in stuff like strange assets, like stuff like cars and, things that, people are trying to dump, like real estate. There's huge opportunities in real estate right now, but you have to have the appetite to be able to sit for a while and maybe not even cash flow them, because
just break even,
just sit there, break even, and then when you have the opportunity to refi, that's when you're going to make some money. And by the way, when you have the opportunity to refi, that's a time when values are going to go back up because rates are coming down, because you can't do that right now. It's going to be a weird place. But yeah, I just don't get involved in stuff that I can't trade, out pretty quickly.
How does that go in those meetings? Because people probably come to you because of your background, and they expect that, wow, I have a meeting with a whale or with somebody that's knowledgeable and has the funding to help us. And then you tell them that that's not your position.
Yeah. So I tell them, I tell them right off the bat, when they approach me, I tell them right away, hey, so look, I'm only investing in real estate, or I'm only investing in stuff that's liquid, that I can liquidate within 24 hours or whatever it is. Not anything that's like, private stock and stuff like that. It's like, hey, you're just going to sit on this forever. However, I will take your equity, but I will also take cash. So generally when these companies come to me for, having me involved in some capacity, it'll be like a board, appointment, or it'd be an advisory role or something like that. And I prefer to be a consultant rather than any of those, because board governance is never fun. I don't want to end up being sued, and the D&O policies only cover a certain amount. And then as a consultant, you pay me cash, but I'll bring you more value than you get out of, paying me equity, or something like that. So pretty straightforward with them, right off the top, because at the end of the day, it's like, how many ventures have we been a part of, all of us at this table, that we took equity in something that never ended up being, you couldn't sell the equity, or just ended up dying out or something like
You
that.
got nothing at the end of the day.
You got nothing at the end of the day, and so you contributing your time and you're associating your brand with it. I think that anyone that's approaching you should feel that they should feel good about that you're willing to take cash versus equity, because one, you don't want to dilute them, and two, you value your time more than most do. So
Um, being successful, and like you said before, with the $2 million cars and these things, and what people, the shiny objects, the things that we aspire to in life. Once you get to that place, or you exit one of these companies, or you get a big windfall of cash, and it changes your life to where your day-to-day necessity for livable things isn't the same. How do you stay motivated to want to keep going forward?
well, when you get to that level, you get more bills.
Yeah.
Right? So you gotta keep coming up with some stuff, no matter how much, no matter. I'll
So
tell
it
you this,
doesn't end
no
for
matter how
everybody
much
out there
money
listening.
we make, we will find a way to spend it. Right?
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Right? And um, things are expensive now. It's really crazy now. Living in California with the tax and all this other stuff, it's crazy. The car thing is, look, I wear beads, right? And I'm not flashy and stuff like that. I have cars, and I'm a car guy. I've been a car guy since I was 15 years old, and so it's more of a car guy thing, and I have some stuff that's really rare and unique, and it's not like, it's not really flashy. Some of the cars that nobody even knows what they are, it's kind of crazy. So, and the cars have always been a place for me to park money that I always do well, and I always make money on my cars, always. So, when times are crazy, liquidate some assets, get out of them, and then buy them back when they're on the floor. So it's always like kind of what I recommend people do is, when assets start moving around, like cars and stuff like that, like when there's deals, like there's deals right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna get. I hope it doesn't get crazier, because I have some assets I'm trying to move. But like, if it does, then there's gonna be opportunity to pick them up, and
I think
pick
this
them up on the
overage
floor.
shit's gonna go out the window.
The what?
All these cars going over.
It's already done. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't want to offend anyone, but I had friends that were paying $100,000 over on a G wagon,
Yeah, it's wild, bro.
and I'm thinking like, you're
Whatever
paying
happened
50%
to
over.
whatever happened to
That's done. You buy G wagons like a sticker now.
I mean, from my walk of life, to pay over retail for anything that was like some sucker shit, basically. You know what
It
I mean?
is. Yeah.
And to me,
it is.
still, like to pay over retail for a watch, or double, triple what a Rolex is worth, is like, I'm like, I want to pay like 30% under retail. Like,
Right.
this is like,
Because that's how you.
I should have a hookup, bro. Like,
Sure.
I'm a mover and shaker. I should
Sure.
know a plug that can get
Yeah.
me Gucci on the low, or this for a little bit less. It's
Sure.
become like the flipped around value of like
Yeah.
resale is like a thing. Like this is it's looked at in a different light. It used to be looked at in like, oh, you're a sucker for spending retail, but now it's like you can't even get this item without paying over, and it almost has like they treat it differently. It's interesting to turn.
It's really crazy. And and it just came to me. It's just like, I haven't really felt the effects of inflation really so much, but this is classic inflation,
Yeah.
right? This is who's a G wagon for 100 G's extra.
I don't think a G
I mean, it's
wagon's
not
worth
cool.
what it is.
I don't think it's
begin
worth
with.
what it is either.
It's not my vehicle, but
No, it's
yeah,
not. I had
get the
5 of
allure
them.
Yeah.
It's a good girlfriend car.
That's
I
what
feel
that's what it tends to end up as.
That's what I look at it as.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's good. But I mean, I'm not paying 350 G's for like a girlfriend car,
No.
So
If it's your car, sure.
yeah, but I mean, it's not even that. It's just like it's right now. Everyone that paid, they're 100 grand upside down.
Yeah, immediately.
and
I don't
God-
like making bad. I just
Yeah.
it hurts me to no
Sure.
matter how much I want something
Yeah.
to make a bad move on it.
See,
Like
that's the difference. I buy as an opportunity,
Yeah.
and I make money on the purchase, right?
yeah,
And if you leverage that philosophy, if you're making money by buying this thing, you're making money today.
yeah,
You bought it less than what it's worth. That's just a key fundamental. You will always win.
is in life in general, right?
Life
If you
in
have that
general.
mindset of
Yeah.
like looking
Like
for
when I buy a real estate too,
knowing value. Yeah,
I don't buy a finished house ever. I buy a house that that is fine the way it is, and I look at it from a different perspective when I walk through it. By the way, every time I buy a home, I walk through it once, and make my decision. That's it. I don't walk through it again until they give me the keys. Never walk through it more than once. So I make my decision in one walk, and I look at it from the perspective of how it will be, not how it is right now. Because I do a lot of work on these homes, and they end up with like, and I end up increasing the value of like 30 to 50% just by the work I'm doing on them. It's pretty crazy. So which walls I'm taking out, what walls am I blowing out? Because everything I do is kind of like mid-century-ish, like new modern, like
Love it.
super
Yeah.
open floor plans and designs.
Yeah.
So I blow out all the walls and stuff. Is this house super compartmentalized right now? If it is, fantastic, because
Yeah.
it's not worth what it's selling for right now. It's worth way more than that. So I look at it from that standpoint. So I make money on the buy, and I have a team. I've been building for 14 years. We do all the work in-house. We don't sub out anything except for electrical and plumbing. We build everything. We install everything ourselves, and I make money on the purchase.
There you go.
So, I'm not buying like houses that are finished either, because
Even for a house you're moving into.
even for a house I'm moving into, yeah,
Well, I want to say, just to let you guys know, that I think you guys should get back into you and Tom should go back into social, because there's
We need that
definitely some
change up.
stuff missing. And from talking to you, I feel like we could use you back in the game, big dog.
Thanks,
for,
man.
for lack of any better word than that.
So I got that Tom Yo B.
Let's go back a little bit. Give us just, if there's any funny or goofy or just any memorable, heartfelt stories from the MySpace days, anything you'd want to share with people out there, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, we've had so much fun during that time. I mean, it was all like really great. There's so many people like everywhere we go. It's like I met my wife on MySpace. All this stuff. Which is really great. And I think it brings a smile. And I think over the years we've had so much interaction with like great talent. Musicians and so many other people. We've been a part of like really great productions, and we've done like some film stuff too, and music, and I don't know, it's been really fun. I mean, we've made a lot of difference, I think, over the years with people. It's just getting messaging out, just getting a lot of information out there. And I think that we do miss it. I mean, I think it was so far the most exciting part of my life, I think, and I was like around 27 around that
Yeah.
time, and it was so much.
You were
so much
changing the
fun.
world.
Yeah, it was great. A lot of travel.
Yeah.
We're always on the road. It was great.
Anything you want to add to the viewers, listeners out there? Anything could be spiritual, could be business, just
Yeah.
something you'd like to leave them with?
I think that, it took me a long time to realize a lot about myself. I think I was like 40, I'm 47 now. Around that time I was like 40, 41. My life started to change a lot, and that's around the time that, we're taking the company public, and getting ready for it, and all the audits and SOX compliance and stuff. And I was like in a corner somewhere. I was really stressed out. It was like really crazy stress. And I started transforming, like I was really changing physically, and like my mood, and I became a totally different person, and a lot of people are in this, we call it fight or flight. A lot of people are in this kind of moment in their lives, either right now or they were, and they don't realize that. And it took me some time to really figure out how to get out of it. And I think that, I think a big part of it was I didn't really have a spiritual connection with myself or the world, and so I really introduced some change with TM, like, transcendental meditation really helped me really connect with myself and understand what was important. But I think the biggest change for me, like two things, like one was I met Danny around that time, and I had a big hormonal problem. I think, the stress and cortisol makes body chemistry changes in you. And
Oh yeah.
when I saw him, I think my testosterone level was at like 110 or something like that. And I was 40 years old. Okay, really, really bad. It was supposed to be at like close to 1,000, right? And it was really bad. So I got my hormones got managed by a doctor, which made huge change. And then I really started focusing. I was working out, every day, and then I got to like 2-3 times a day workouts, and it's really transformed me and introduced physical duress, which really changed my mind on understanding that real all this virtual stress is really just virtual stress. And when you introduce physical duress and like your body understands, your brain understands that I know this is actual stress, and when you're introducing that every day, you stay out of fight or flight. So that was a really big change. So hormone management, working out, meditation, really key. I became a different person, and then I was introduced to mushrooms like 3 years ago, psilocybin, and that made the most impact. Like all this stuff is great, but that really helped me really understand one thing that was missing for me, the biggest thing, which was I did not know how to be present.
Wow.
You were always disconnected.
I was always living in the fear of the future and the regret of the past,
That's it. Yeah.
And I never understood that until psilocybin. And, rewiring my brain, new neural network connections and neurogenesis and neuroplasticity and just so much great stuff, right? And while I was on, while I was in this microdosing, I never could do more than a microdose because I can't handle the trips and stuff, and just I'm really feel confined and stuff, so I couldn't do it. So always microdose, and I felt this connection to myself and everyone that was with me, and I understood how to be present. And by the way, I had the worst memory before. I had the worst memory. I couldn't remember anything. It was crazy. It was so bad. The stress kills you, right? And the stress is really just built up of two events. It's fear of the future and regret of the past. That's what it is. That's all it is. It just basically boils down to those two things. If you're stressed out, you're afraid of tomorrow, or you're worried about what happened yesterday. Yeah. That's the bottom line. That's what stress is, right? So I was not here, right? So psilocybin taught me how to be present to the point where I remember every word everyone says all the time.
It's wild doing that.
I have the craziest memory, and everyone tells me it's just scary that my memory is so crazy. I remember everything that everyone says, right? Like down to the word. It's insane. It's because I'm ultra present, and even after, mushrooms, all of that is lasting, and I am ultra present. So that being present, while you're in present tense, some magical stuff happens, right? The magical stuff that happens is you realize what is actually important to you right now, not tomorrow or yesterday. It's right now. What's really important to you? And it's not the shit that you're stressed about. Like the stuff that you're stressed about is not, that stuff doesn't really matter in your life. It's just a part, it's your work, or it's just whatever it is, it's a part of it, But the stuff that really matters is right this moment. It's like animals, they live in the present tense and they're so happy, right? And so that's part of it. It's a big part of it. So I had to rewire myself and figure that out. And I'm like a different person completely. And some people say that my ex-girlfriend broke up with me because I wasn't so spiritual. It's weird. And a lot of people say I'm probably one of the most spiritual people they'll meet, And by the way, everyone, Brian is half Indian. He's from India. So I'm also from India, and I grew up Hindu. So my parents are practicing Hindus. And so I was around a lot.
Culture is very spiritual.
Very spiritual. I was around a lot of spiritual.
That's why you like
chanting
Bali so
mantras
much.
when I was a kid, huh?
That's why you like Bali so much.
So I love Bali. Yeah. Going to Bali was transformative too. It was so great. But yeah, I think this was like a big 3 years ago, big transformative event in my life, and I never really did drugs. Had a little phase in MDMA in 2000. I lived in Silicon Valley, and house music was big around that time. But other than that, nothing else. And then I had a friend here. He is in tech. He sold a company to Facebook, and wildly successful. Had built another $3-4 billion business over the last 3-4 years. He's crushing, and he tells me, he's like, "Yo, every idea that I've had has come from psilocybin in the last 10 years. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You got to start microdosing." I said, "No, I don't do drugs. No, can't do it. I don't do drugs. No, just can't. I get anxiety. I don't want to do it. I don't even smoke weed. And he started sending me science because he knew if I read this stuff, and I read it, these studies, actual, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies of like all these different situations, and I read this stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is insane. Why am I not in this world? Why am I not doing this? So it changed my life, you know, it really did. And rewired my brain. I've never been sharper. And, you know, I think it introduced, I'm 47, but everyone around me feels that I'm, you know, like 32 or something. And not just the way I look, but like my energy, you know?
Yeah.
It really changed and brought youth in me as well. Changed my mindset and philosophy so much. So that's what really spawned me kind of going down the road of, you know, trying everyone's microdosing products and then coming up with my own, you know, building my own. It was a passion project. So it's really fun.
What's the name of your plant medicine company?
Oh, it's called Au Santé.
Hmm.
So it means to your health in French. And we have a biodynamic supplement company. And we've been doing supplements for 5 years. And then we introduced a CBD line. And then we just added psilocybin to it recently, a couple years ago, year and a half ago. So,
Nice. I'm a
yeah,
big fan.
thanks.
Yeah, we're both feel the same way you do, pretty much. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
definitely a game changer, life changing, and I feel like the most readily available best medicine for any type of stress, PTSD, or long term, you know, brain trauma that has life has caused for people. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was watching a video yesterday about a famous scientist who was had the stuttering problem for his whole life, and then he took a large dose, a big dose of, I don't know what the big dose is, a hero dose, maybe 10 grams or something. I don't
Yeah,
know. But he
Heard of
took a
it.
big dose and gone,
gone.
completely gone.
Totally different
It's
person.
crazy.
Hero
That
dose
killed
is
that.
scary.
Yeah,
It killed that old ego problem.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
now he's reborn as somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people, you know, we've helped a lot of people with addiction. Alcohol is very common,
Yes.
so I don't drink, not because I didn't have any addiction issues, but I just wanted to be leaner. And a lot of friends of mine, you know, were drinking, and so I got them on the psilocybin, and they don't drink anymore, completely quit, and they're very different today, and they're so happy, and they're much more social in social environments,
Yeah.
you know. And actually, the alcohol causes you to be a little bit more introverted, but they feel like they're social. It's weird.
It's a start. It starts in one direction
Yeah,
and it ends very badly.
yeah,
But our brain only remembers the the
yeah.
initial effect, right? It's an interesting thing. I grew
Mhm.
up around alcoholism and people with addiction, so I see that and I've struggled with it myself. So
And we've treated other types of addictions like opiates and also this other one, which is really crazy because a lot of people are really interested in kratom right now.
yeah,
And so kratom, a lot of people don't know this, but kratom hits the opiate receptors just like opiates do. It's identical. It's the same. So you feel the same way. And there are people addicted to kratom right now. And I had a friend of mine who was addicted to kratom, and I got him off with psilocybin. He's completely off, and he's so happy, you know. But it's a really tough one to kick too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I've been sober my whole life, so I've seen how alcohol affects a lot of people and all these other drugs. And for me to try psilocybin, that was a I was on the same road as you.
Hmm.
What the fuck is this?
it was
Yeah.
out of the ordinary.
Yeah,
You're kind of a square in that sense. So
I'm a big square when it comes
yeah,
to that sense.
so
Let's go do
it was
something.
odd that you
Went down that rabbit hole.
and deep too, man.
Oh yeah.
You like really delved in there, which was out of character for you, I would think.
I think I've
How deep?
my next
Pretty
journey.
far
I'm
gone.
considering ayahuasca next month.
Okay.
I've done DMT twice. That one was a game changer. I've done with the shaman 4 grams of psilocybin. For me,
Mhm.
that was a lot.
Yeah.
You see some shit.
I've done two max, and I didn't like it. I was a bad trip for me, you know.
Since 2 is kind of the halfway point of
Mhm.
being
You gotta go
where
further.
you got to go
Yeah.
further. Like
Yeah.
I fucked around one day and took like 1.5, and I was like,
Yeah, it's
I want
bad.
this ride to stop now.
When
Oh,
you
right,
get
yeah.
to like ego death, you tend to want to be on the complete other side of it
Mhm.
because you have no recollection of
What happened?
your human traits. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
you're halfway in and halfway out, we can delve into a place that puts us in a very bad frame of mind because if, like you said,
Yeah.
you can still worry about the future or the past.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be in a space where that is the
Yeah,
thing
I
if you're
don't-
trying to really solve some
Yeah.
deep issues. You want to go past that to where
There's no
nothing but
question.
answers. There's
Yeah.
no questions, right?
I think that's
Um,
next on your spiritual journey.
I think so. I think, you know, I haven't done an actual journey with a shaman yet, so I think that I want to do that
You
probably.
should. Yeah,
Yeah.
guided
Yeah.
is best. Yeah.
Guided, I wouldn't
Yeah.
do it without guided.
Guided.
Ever.
Yeah, it's just I'm just, I feel like I'm this type of personality that is controlling, and
Yeah.
I need to be in control and I can't let go. And I feel that a lot of these shamans are introducing sass or something in the beginning, sassafras or something to open you up, and then the dose of mushrooms. So it kind of it's different,
Eases into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it opens you up first.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
Yeah,
Relax you a little bit.
Yeah.
they just threw me into the fire, bro.
um, anything you want to plug, share, where people can find you? The site
Sure.
for
If you
your
even want to
for
be found.
your
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, you can put my name on the screen, but yeah, my Instagram, you put that on there as well, and then the for the shroom supplements, it's asante au-sante.com. You can send us an email on the site, and you could ask for the password for the psilocybin site. It's gated.
I'll put a link down below so people
Sure.
can grab it.
Awesome.
man. I've learned some things sitting here, and I'm happy to have shared this time with you and hear your journey, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
you
for
coming
having me.
on and talking, and
Thank you so much.
I know we played telephone for a little while, so I'm glad we were able to connect
Yeah,
and finally
that's
get you
awesome.
out here.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate you, sir.
Appreciate your time.
like, comment, subscribe. Tell us how you feel and what you learned.